in this situation, Satish is my boss. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me, and it's a delight to speak to you, to intervene and translate. I'm going to take, Milton started off saying he's going to take a narrow view of internet governance. I'm going to take a wide view of internet governance. But I will you've already seen some duplications between the first two talks, and there's going to be a lot more. We're all talking about internet governance, and so the same entities come up again and again, maybe with a slightly different twist to them. Is there any chance you can actually see the bottom of that slide? It looks like the table's in the way. All right, nothing. I'm afraid there's not much I can do about it, but I'll try to make it usable. I did hope that the whole overall screen would be larger than it is, so you're going to have trouble reading some parts of it as well. Okay, internet governance. The internet is, as you all know, a network of autonomous networks. Autonomous means they make their own rules, but we expect them all to work together. Therefore, by definition, internet governance is highly distributed. Now, the title of my talk uses the word ecosystem. That's a word that is in vogue these days. An ecosystem is usually, traditionally, a biological word, but it's also used these days to talk about complex networks of interconnected things. And again, it applies. Okay, what really is internet governance? When we say, let's talk about internet governance, what are we talking about? Well, what we're really talking about is who controls it. Who controls the internet? Because that's what governance means. You make the rules. And essentially, who makes the rules? So that's the context that I'm looking at. Who makes the rules? Who do you go to if you don't like the way it's working? Re-architect your rules. Just like we re-architect. I think you have to move it over this way a little bit, if you can. This is very much like the internet. If we find it doesn't work, let's change the rules on the fly and hope we don't break things along the way. All right, here's a nice picture. It comes from the Internet Society. That's the internet ecosystem. Those are all the players. You can't see it right now. I'll blow parts of it up. But that's essentially everyone. If you look at it carefully, you'll see there's duplicates because each of the sectors is a certain function, and some players operate in multiple sectors. So you'll find governments show up as users. They are users. They show up in education. They take part of it. They show up making rules. Now, to a large extent, again, factoring in the duplication I just mentioned, those shaded parts are the parts that, in general, have an opportunity to make rules. There are a few exceptions. So, just looking at the number of entities at the ends of those nodes, there's a lot of groups that have an opportunity to make rules. And of course, what you as a user see is the sum total of all the rules in the whole path from you to wherever. All right, here's another picture. You can't read that one either. But it's another picture showing a whole bunch of entities of who runs the internet. The fact that we have these pictures means we care a little bit. And people have different views on just how this will work. All right, one of the real problems we have is the size and number of players. You'll see up one of the segments is the operators. And network operators are part of that. This little diagram, you can't read the details. That's a diagram, if you believe the people who published it, of internet service providers. This little green one up in the upper right-hand corner is most of Australia. In 1999, if you remember from Milton's talk, that's just when things were starting to get hot. So another 17 years has gone on since then. No one tries to draw these diagrams anymore. At least not many people do. So lots and lots of players getting their hand in the pot. And this is just the network operators, not the others. Okay, we have overlapping and unclear jurisdictions. Many of the rules are voluntary. Now, there may be a penalty for not following them if things don't work, or not. We have national governments, regional governments, local governments. Everyone makes rules. We have lots of private business in it. This is big money. Everything has to be internet-wide, and of course we also have intergovernmental organizations getting involved in it. All right. As has become clear, we're talking about evolution here. Things change. I like to refer to the time before governments and before anyone got involved. When I built my first network in a university, I didn't ask for permission. My boss didn't even know what I was talking about. Luckily, the cost was low enough that I just did it. When we built the first national networks in Canada, again, we just did it. I didn't ask for permission. 10, 11 years later, 1999 or so, it became important. Suddenly, I wasn't representing the university on the management committee. My boss, the vice president, was. Becomes important. Governments want to control things, and in any level of organization, it's suddenly something that is no longer an interesting toy for academics and researchers. So everyone needed to take control. Remember, take control, write the rules, govern. Oops, all right. There we are. So from governance point of view, and I'm using the chart. One could divide it in an infinite number of ways. But from the point of view of the chart I was using, there are four main sectors. There are standards, people who set them, people who operate the various parts of it, people who set the rules governing names and addressing, and governments, of course, can get their hand in anywhere they want. Okay. Again, this is that big chart blown up a little bit. Standards, we have a number of different organizations, and we'll look at them now. We have the Internet Engineering Task Force. They're the main body that sets the protocols. Again, it's very much a bottom-up organization. It is skill-based. You don't run for president, you prove you're good by writing good code or having good ideas and then convincing your peers that it's good. The Internet Architecture Board is one of the groups that oversees this process. Internet Society doesn't really set rules, but in fact the IAB and the IETF operate under the auspices of the Internet Society. It became obvious that they had to have a legal home, but they don't exist in their own right. So essentially, they work under the auspices of the Internet Society, which puts a bunch of money into it, doesn't tend to influence, it's not directly what it is they're doing. There's a similar component for longer-term research, the Internet Research Task Force. With the advent of the web, we have W3C, the Web Consortium, which sets web standards. ISO gets into it. And the ITU has an interest. In general, they haven't taken a major part, but every few years things wake up, and often governments, particularly governments who for some reason aren't happy with how things are now, feel the ITU should come in and run everything, just like they run our telephone systems. And we're all happy with our phone systems, right? Private little propaganda. I'm trying to make this a relatively balanced talk, but only relatively. Okay, then the operations people. Now, they don't set standards, but they operate the equipment. And you end up with some interesting things. Because they operate the equipment, because they let you connect to things, they implicitly make rules. I was sitting, and it's not just the big networks, it's the small networks too. I was sitting in the airport in a lounge waiting to come here, and I went to a website I normally go to. Somebody somewhere decided that that has adult content on it, and I couldn't get to it from the airport because I'm not allowed to. They're setting rules. They're making judgment calls, and they set the rules, and since they own those wires, those are the rules that work. Until I bypass them with a VPN. Okay. Network operators groups. The network operators often group together, again, to try to find some commonality and make decisions as a group, making sure, of course, they're not violating the various antitrust laws that most countries have, saying they're not allowed to get together to make decisions, or at least not some. Internet exchange points. We were in the situation, and still are in some places, that if I wanted to send a message from here to across the street, and I was in Africa, there's a good chance that message would go through Europe. Especially if I was French speaking and they were English speaking. But even if we're, in that case, we would probably have to go to France, to London, and then back again. If we were just French speaking, we'd just go to France and back again. Exceedingly expensive communication to talk across the street. So we came up with the concept of exchange points. Don't hear about them much. There's a lot of them. And every single exchange point may, if it chooses, make rules about who can transit that exchange point, and they could even make rules about bandwidth and content if they choose. We have service providers, Google, CNN, Amazon, all sorts of service providers that provide service and set their own rules. So again, all sorts of people are getting involved in deciding what you can look at and how you can look at it, or how you can use it. Generic top-level domains. Milton talked a lot about GTLDs, and now there's a whole bunch of them, including, finally, ones that are not only in Latin characters. So we finally made some rules. But you'll notice the second to last one, Tata Motors, not Tata, because there's a region in Morocco with that name, and Morocco objected. So, relatively large company in India can't use it because there is a region and a city somewhere else halfway around the world. But we're looking at a worldwide resource, and there can only be one. Did we pick the right way of making the rules of who gets it? Who knows? Guaranteed, not everyone's going to be happy no matter how you make those decisions. Okay, and then country codes. Country codes are fun in India because you have more than anyone else. I think I got all of them, but I might have missed one. So if I did, I'm sorry. And then we have hardware and software developers. They make all sorts of rules too. For instance, some of those CCTLDs and GTLDs cannot be used from some software products. There are still software products that say a top-level domain is 3 Latin characters. All the ones I know are, so why should I support any more? And they, of course, implicitly say what you can do by how they design their hardware, their software, things like that. So lots of people get their hand in making the rules. Notice one of the entities in operations are the root servers. The root servers are the entities that take the IANA tables, the base, the root of the internet, and make them accessible. So they tell you where is .com, where is .in. I didn't talk about them. They don't make rules. The root servers, by their own definition, because no one controls them, they're all voluntary groups, not under contract to anyone. The root servers say, we will take the IANA information and pass it on. We will not edit it. We will not say who can get to it. So they're not part of internet governance, even though they're a very crucial part of the physical internet we're talking about. Naming and addressing, names and numbers, lots of that focuses on ICANN. We have the regional registry, regional internet registries, the addressing registries that control who gets IP addresses, how they're given out, what they charge for them. because they are charged, I think in all cases, autonomous system numbers. So again, they are within their own groups generally a multi-stakeholder operation. One of the concepts, we talk about multi-stakeholders a lot. One of the things to remember is in many multi-stakeholder organizations, each of the stakeholders is another multi-stakeholder organization. So we nest down to try to cover everyone. ICANN is, again, a multi-stakeholder operation that within it has the supporting organizations that control the various aspects that we're looking at: numbers, CCTLDs, GTLDs. Within GTLDs, ICANN makes pretty much all of the overall rules governing how GTLDs can be used from a GTLD level, not what's done within them. CCTLDs, we pretty well stay out of, because CCTLDs are relatively autonomous, but I say relatively. So for instance, when we went from 2-character country codes to IDNs, you suddenly needed a set of rules. ICANN took responsibility for those, and CCTLD operators agree to follow those rules as they deploy IDN CCTLDs. So there's some limited areas that the CCNSO gets very involved in. And then there's the ITU that isn't involved heavily, but keeps on being mentioned by various people, and there's one that's being discussed this week. There are meetings going on as we speak, and again, this is similar to one we talked about, that it's a proposal from African countries saying pretty much any geographic name down to any city in any country should be prohibited as a GTLD. That covers a lot of ground, and it sits directly on top of what ICANN is responsible for. So it remains seen how this will come out. Now, the group that's meeting doesn't set rules. They make recommendations which countries can follow should they choose. But it's going to be an interesting discussion. Governments. They seem to get involved just a little bit. We have governments at national, sub-region, province, or state, local levels. Certainly in the US, there are cities that make rules about who can run internet services or not. And they generally make regulations for within their own jurisdictions, but sometimes not. For instance, you're probably aware of the fact that the privacy laws in the European Union are pretty strict. And they came up with rules, for instance, the right to be forgotten. If someone wants the information about them erased from the internet, there are processes by which you can do it. The European Union, however, has also said that Google, you not only have to erase it in what you present here, but what you show in India has to be erased too. Now, they have absolutely no jurisdiction to do that, except if Google wants to operate in Europe, they have to keep the European countries happy, the European governments happy. A little bit of coercion. And there's other cases also, extradition rules to allow someone to be removed from a country into your country are international agreements. And there are all sorts of international agreements where countries agree to let someone else have some level of authority over them, although perhaps with some due process. Regional governmental organizations, if you're following ICANN at all and this saga over who is going to run .Africa, you'll find discussions of the African Union. It is an organization that has some level of authority granted by the countries that are its members, and they take part in these kind of discussions. So again, another level of in that case, multinational, transnational organizations. Then we have intergovernmental organizations. The UN, the United Nations, is the main one. There are many bodies under it. The ITU is one of them. Again, you only participate in them if you choose, but many governments choose. So, to what extent do they have the ability of setting rules? Well, the answer is to the extent that we let them. But in many cases, they set lots of rules. The ITU is a special case within the intergovernmental unions because they clearly have a mandate associated with communications. It may not be an internet mandate, but remember, they started off, the T in ITU stood for
the International Telecommunication Union.
Now it does. Originally, telegraph. It was created to help regulate and merge the telegraph companies. So one of the first things the ITU did many, many years ago is, everyone familiar with the telegraph? You know, Dix and Dawes, Morse code. Very stiff.
Pull up your mic.
Pull my microphone up. Thank you. Is that any better?
Yes.
Okay. Well, when people started sending telegraphs, telegraph companies charge. What do they charge for? By the word or by the letter. People figured out that if they took the word pet and had it mean, I've reached the place I've wanted to go to, succeeded with my negotiations, and everything is perfect, we're going to make lots of money. They can now send a 3-letter telegram that communicated all of that. Telegraph companies quickly found out they were losing lots of money because people started transmitting in code. They came up with a dictionary of allowed words. They couldn't stop pet from being used, but they could stop random characters from being used. That was one of the first things the ITU did. So the ITU is clearly in that business, and certainly many people within the ITU and many governments would feel more comfortable having the ITU control things than ICANN or some of the other groups, because governments control the ITU. Question?
Is the role of ITU getting diminished right now? Because as per our statistics, it shows that 16% of the time we are actually using a mobile phone to make a call.
Okay. The question is the role of the ITU being diminished? Well, a few decades ago, virtually all communication, all electronic communications in the world, the telegraph and phone, were somehow under the auspices of the ITU and the rules set by the ITU, and in particular, the money exchange between countries for international communications. Many governments in the world, their largest source of external income was the fees charged for telecommunications. Right now, virtually everything that's done on the internet is outside of their role. So yes, of course it's being diminished.
Now that we are using WhatsApp for making a call, Skype, Google Duo, and all that for calls.
Now, it's partly the voice, but it's partly all of our post offices have problems because we aren't sending postal letters either. So the International Postal Union has been threatened. So it's not just telecommunications. We could say they're the bad guys, but the world has changed around them, and they are, of course, reacting. And governments who used to have phone companies as monopolies are also feeling disenfranchised and reacting. All of it is completely natural. And of course, there's all sorts of discussion forums. We have the WISIS meetings, the WITSA meeting that I was talking about. A couple of years ago, the World Conference on International Communications, who were in a position to make different sorts of rules for their countries. Very, very controversial, because the internet and the various internet functions were one of the main topics. IGF, Internet Governance Forums. We have the global one, just renewed it recently for another N years. They started as a result of WSIS 2 in Tunisia in 2005. There are regional IGFs that operate in their own and to some extent feed into the the centralized ones. A couple of years ago, there was an event in Brazil, Net Mundial, which again served to bring people together and try to address some of the complex questions that have to do with internet governance. So lots and lots going on. I talk too fast, and I hope you've been able to follow what I'm talking about. The real question comes down to is, can the internet be governed? And I think that's an interesting question. We have various groups competing for authority. We were just talking about the ITU, governments. There are other places where there are intersections of people competing for authority. We have some really serious problems. We have different sets of rules in different jurisdictions. We have overlaps in governance, that multiple groups say they are in charge of certain aspects, and they overlap. We have gaps. We'll talk about gaps in a moment. There's some big gaps that none of us control. Everything is still, to a large extent, voluntary, except where governments make it mandatory. Because governments are still in a position to make rules and enforce penalties. The IETF cannot set penalties for not following their standards. And we're using a technology that was designed for flexibility and innovation, not control. If we had all this to do over again, we could probably do the work that was done in the 1970s. And if we did it differently, we might not have some of the problems we had today. Because as the world evolves, when I started using email, if I got a message from Glenn and it said it was from Glenn, it was. Because the entire path between me and him was operated by people I trusted. In that case, it would be the universities. The user IDs were allocated by people who were trusted. And I could pretty well trust. Could someone fake it? Yes. Someone in the right place could fake it. But in general, I could trust. When I started using IP-based mail, I could send a letter to the president of my university, signed from the board of directors, saying you're fired. And they'd be hard pressed to find out who did it. A couple of examples. Spam. Anyone ever hear of spam? Yeah. You've probably seen an occasional email that you class as spam. It wasn't an issue when the protocols were developed. It wasn't that they said spam is okay. They didn't think of it. When I built my first user system for users on computers, I had user IDs so I could identify the files were yours or yours or yours. I didn't have passwords. Why would someone sign off on with someone else's code? Original internet systems, the concept among researchers was everything should be open. I have no secrets. My colleagues across the world can look at my files. As soon as you start having miscreants, people do things that are no longer proper. We add passwords, we add controls, we add things. But on some things, it's hard to go back and fix it. Spam is annoying to most of us. Why do people keep on spamming us? Have you ever thought, if it's so annoying, why do they keep on doing it? The answer is because it works. If they send out 10 million emails, maybe only 5 people say yes and click on something and give them some money. That's all it takes to make it profitable. We used to get spam in paper mail too, but it was more expensive to send each paper mail letter. Here it's really cheap, especially if, because of the technology, you're not even sending it with your own computer. You're stealing access to someone else's computer to send them. How convenient. So it works. I did a study a number of years ago on spam. I collected all the spam I received for several months and I analyzed it. What's spam about? Spam is about sex, making money, saving money, health, all things we care about. So it's not hard to get people to answer yes because it's really intriguing. Okay, governments can outlaw. Many governments say spam is illegal if you can catch someone doing it. And it's harder and harder to do. We can design standards that will make it very difficult to send spam, that is, send mail which isn't traceable back to whoever sent it. But people have to follow those standards. And occasionally we've designed standards that don't really work very well. And then suddenly your email doesn't work because someone adopted a standard checking all of their received mail that no one's using in sending mail. So suddenly you don't accept mail from Yahoo or Google anymore. And the internet breaks, effectively. So it's really difficult. And moreover, there was an expression someone gave me many years ago that it's hard to make things idiot-proof because idiots are so innovative. Well, spammers are innovative. No matter what we do, we seem to be able to get around it and keep on doing it. So how do we govern it? The answer is it's not easy. Will we get better? Probably. Now, Milton alluded to this one. A week or so ago, there was a massive denial of service attack. Distributed denial of service. When you send lots and lots of traffic at a particular place, you send it from a lot of places, so they can't trace it back to you. Each of those places is controlled by a master somewhere. Sometimes you can find out where the master is, if they don't do it very well. Traditionally, the compromised computers are people's computers. And you can't fix that easily, but over the years, companies like Microsoft and Apple have patched computers. They send out updates. When I started using microcomputers, remember when they were called microcomputers? If you're old enough, you remember that. Okay. Companies would send out software, be it Microsoft and their operating system, or an application package to do word processing. That's it. They would not update it. You know, buy the next version in 3 years if you like a new version. And eventually people figured out that you have to update these things because we are going to make mistakes. Okay. So, yes, people find out bugs in Macs or in Macs or PCs that the various people doing naughty things find out about and utilize. But if you're lucky, we patch them. This particular one was done largely with things like surveillance cameras, web-enabled surveillance cameras. Okay. How many people have a webcam? How many people regularly patch the software on your webcam? How many security companies patch the software on the cameras, making watching the convenience store? Nobody. How many of the companies building them send out patches? Not many. Well, those things are web-enabled. You log on to those things. What's the password and user ID? Well, chances are they're all the same. When you install a new camera, do you think to change the password? Maybe. If you're really good at it, one of the cameras that was used, one of the common cameras that was used, you actually can change the password and the user ID for getting onto its web interface to adjust it. They also accept input from Telnet. Remember what Telnet is? Telnet is a keyboard-oriented thing. From that one, they didn't change, you can't change the password. So as long as you Telnet to that camera, instead of using a web interface, you have complete control and you can't fix it. So until all of the cameras produced are more secure, and everyone replaces their existing camera, how do we fix that? Not clear it's fixable. So, all sorts of real problems associated with the governance of the internet, because so many people have their hands in the pot that controlling becomes a really, really difficult problem. So, as I said when I started, I'm taking a wider view, not just the formal organizations that are responsible for the rules, but all the people who along the way in their jobs make rules that govern what we can do and what we can't do. And some of them in ways, as seen here, can literally bring the internet to its knees in ways that are very, very difficult to stop. We don't know why that particular denial of service attack was made. Was it to test out the code? Was it to demonstrate that someone had power once they identified who the someone is? Is it the prelude to the next major terrorism attack where they plan to kill the internet before the attack happens? We don't know. It's anything from a malicious teenager to a world government. And that's it.